parents in England are to pay more for school lunches as caterers blame the rising costs. I'm going to read into this more from The Guardian, you guys. So it says, as a new academic year begins, providers say the national insurance rises and food price inflation has forced up the prices. So it's already very difficult enough, guys, for many parents in England when it comes to purchasing of uniforms in particular, especially schools that require certain uniforms and certain outlet. It costs parents a fortune, and many parents, unfortunately, have to use credit cards in order to be able to afford to send their kids to schools just so they can have the necessary uniform to have at schools. So when you're already paying over the top as it is just for uniforms for your children, and now you're paying more for school lunches, that really is a hammer blow to many children. It really is a hammer blow to your finances as well, because you want to give your children the best opportunities that they can in their futures. And especially for lower income people who are really struggling, who are trying to make savings of some sorts, or trying to basically literally survive. It's very rough. And we are still in a cost of living crisis. There are still many people who are struggling to make ends meet, struggling to get by, struggling to be able to afford their bills. Many parents out there who just are trying absolutely everything to give their children everything that they possibly can to be successful. And they are being hammered. And this is once again another hammer on those parents, on those who are really struggling down at the bottom, who should not have to be struggling to get by. It's another sign of the failure of our government not doing more about this. Now, yes, people will argue, well, the government is pushing out more free school meals, and I welcome the free breakfast club. But I already said, and I said it time and time again about the free breakfast club that they were introducing. Like, they should be hammering it out to all meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There should not be a cost whatsoever when it comes to parents feeding their kids, making sure that they have the nutrient meals. This should come straight out of taxpayer money. Paying for the meals should be coming straight out of taxpayer money. It should be coming straight out of them. And it should never be an issue. It should never be something that should be an issue to feed our kids. Anyone who has a problem with using taxpayer money to feed kids, you're the problem. You're the goddamn problem. It's really vital that we make sure every single child is given 3 meals a day, that their bellies are full, so that they can become a productive member of society later on in their life. I cannot stress that enough. So parents across England are facing a higher prices for school lunches as the new school year begins, with caterers blaming the government's national insurance increase alongside rising food and energy costs. And again, like the energy cost as well has gone up significantly as well. It's been covered I've covered it in live streams as well. Lunch providers say increases in staffing costs, including the employers' national insurance contributions announced by the chancellor last year, have added significant extra pressure to their budgets. Food price inflation is also driving costs higher, pushing consumer price above forecast this summer. Prices for food and non-alcoholic drinks rose 4.9% in the year to July and are now 37% higher than 5 years ago, according to data from the Office of National Statistics. 37% higher. Prices for food and non-alcoholic drinks 4.9% in the year July, now 37% higher than 5 years ago. How the hell has that happened? Do you want a clue? Begins with a letter B. I think you know what word I'm talking about, because you know what happened 5 years ago. Letter sent to parents informing them of price rises acknowledged the strain on families, but said changes were unavoidable if catering services were to remain viable. At Coldham Primary in Shrewsbury, Shropshire, meals will rise by 10p a day from £2.60 from September 2025 because of rising operational costs. Bridge Hall Primary at Stockport, Greater Manchester, said charges will rise by 8p to £2.73, a 3.1% increase in line with UK inflation. Fenhurst Jr. at Portsmouth confirmed a new daily rate of £2.86 at West Vale Academy in Halifax, £2.60. Kings and Wells Church of England Primary School in Newton Abbott raised costs to £2.75, up by 30p. Ministers have promised to widen eligibility for free meals from 2026, but schools said they cannot wait that long. So they like I said, they're pushing the breakfast club thing, but they need to cover the cost for parents. They really do, and for the schools. Sorry. About a quarter of pupils in England currently qualify for free school meals, but campaigners said the government's £2.61 a meal funding is no longer sufficient, leaving schools to plug the gaps. All schools will be navigating the impact of rapidly rising food and costs, says Paul Whiteman, General Secretary of the School Leaders Union and National Association of Head Teachers. Sometimes school dinners are the only reliable nutrient meal a day they will get that day. So for this to be one of the worst qualities or more one of the worst quantities or more expenses is extremely concerning. Julius Gregory, chair of LACA, which represents the public and private sector caterers in school, said they were doing everything possible to shield families by streamlining menus, adopting recipes and finding efficiencies. But Gregory said caterers' effects were not enough and schools were having to raise costs for others to cover the funding shortfall. It was always going to fall on parents at the end of the day. Food inflation has driven up the cost of school meals by more than 20% since 2020, she said. Without urgent action to raise funding to at least £3.45 per meal, schools will be forced to reduce options or introduce less costly ingredients, while families just above the free school meal threshold face higher charges. And we said the recent increase in employer national insurance as well as the annual pay increase for workers will add significant extra pressure on top of an already steep rise in food costs. Barbara Chalker, the Children's Food Campaign Manager at Suston, a group advocating for food and agricultural policies and practices that enhance health and welfare, said the true cost of healthy, sustainable school meals was now closer to £3, £3.20, depending on the size of schools and catering operations. Campaigners argue that higher charges will disproportionately affect low-income families, with many falling just below the threshold for free school meals. School leaders are deeply worried, said Whiteman. They are seeing more families struggle and more children living in poverty. Child hunger is a real concern. There is only so long schools can swallow the increases. For many, putting up the cost of meals is now the only option. The Department of Education said the government is taking a historic step to tackle the stain of child poverty, offering free school meals to every child from a household that claims universal credit from the start of 2026 school year. The spokesperson added the new entitlements will be fully funded and lift 100,000 children entirely out of poverty to make sure meals are high quality and nutrition. The government is working with experts to revise the school food standards. We will continue to work closely with the sector to keep meal rates under review. The Guardian was unable to reach schools for comment on it. Now, the government are doing stuff about this, and this is obviously very significant, especially those that claim universal credit. But what about those who don't claim universal credit? What about the parents that are working 3-4 jobs or whatnot, and that they are struggling just to feed themselves and their child? What about those ones who aren't on universal credit? I think is the question there, because it is not just about those on universal credit, which is what it's talking about there. I said at the start that every single child in the UK, and obviously we're talking specifically England here, but no child should go hungry. No child should go hungry. And considering the wealth that this government, that we have in England, it should not be a factor about paying for children's food. No one should have this issue. If you have a problem with paying taxes to feed children, you really don't have a soul, do you? We want all children in the UK, in England, to be successful, to have 3 meals a day, to be able to be given the best education possible, to give them the best that they need in the future. And we are hurting this generation. We're taking that away from them because we're not willing to do enough for them. The government must put its hands in its pockets or borrow to cover these costs. And they cannot just sit and wait. They can't just keep telling schools to find efficiencies. You can only do so much efficiencies where it gets to a point where someone has to pick up the tab. And in this instance, it is the parents that are picking up the tab. Now, some parents can afford it. Many others cannot. And that is where we're going to have a much more increase in child poverty. More needs to be done, and the government is not doing enough right now. So what do you guys think? What do you guys make of the situation with regards to school lunches for parents in England and what they're having to go through? Let me know your thoughts and more on all of this down in the comment section below. If you found this video informative or helpful to you, please hit that like button, share it across social media, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Do check out Rumble and Patreon for exclusive content. And if you want to financially support me and the work that I do here on this channel, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.